So, you want to become good at math. Based on all the movies and shows, we were told that math is for people that have a high IQ and natural talent. But actually, become good at math is pretty easy, even if you don't think you have the math gene. So take me as an example. My name's Han. I graduated from Columbia University. I studied math and operations research because I majored in math and I got pretty good grades. Some people assume that I was naturally smart. Little did they know, I was failing my math classes in high school. Well, the material just didn't make sense to me. I couldn't understand what the teacher was talking about in the class. I remember that every time when I asked for help, I can see the frustrations in their eyes because I'm just so confused. Being defeated by a math problem and just constantly looking dumb really didn't help my self-confidence. I always procrastinated in terms of studying math or doing math homework back then because I know that every time I tried the problems, I just couldn't figure it out no matter how long I try, and that's just such a negative experience. So I end up always try to avoid doing math homeworks, and just the thought of going to math classes make me nervous because being in a classroom and couldn't do anything else but just listening to the teacher explaining things that I have no idea what's going on was such an emotional draining thing. And turns out I was not alone. Approximately 93% adult Americans indicate that they had experienced some level of math anxiety. You know what? Even though I was so terrible at math when I was in high school, one day something just clicked and I finally felt like I cracked the secret code of becoming good at math. So for context, let me explain what I was doing back in high school. I would try to pay attention in math classes and take all the notes that I can take, and I spent lots of time looking through textbooks, and I would really try to understand those math problems. Well, I sounded like a hard worker, right? But something must be wrong when you spend all that time trying really hard but just have no result. So little young Han just thought, oh, I must be stupid. But that's so far away from the truth. The thing is, stop always trying to understand math, but actually all you need to do is to practice. So back in high school, all I was doing was passive learning and basically no active learning. So passive learning basically means you receive information from outside sources and you try to internalize it, such as listening to lectures or reading or watching demonstrations. So active learning, on the other hand, means you have to actively involved in the learning process, like engaging in discussions, practicing questions, and teaching others. And there's so many research shows that passive learning are not as effective as active learning in math and science education. So in real life, we use math to help us solve problems, like calculating how much tip you should leave. And in school, they test your math skill by asking you to solve math problems. So either way, you need to know how to use math by practicing it. You wouldn't say you can drive a car just by watching someone else drive and remembering all the traffic rules. You have to get into the car and practice. So you really don't have to spend a lot of time trying to understand math by reading. It's like understand all the mechanism of how a car moves. What really matters is you know how to drive. So if you want to be good at math, all you have to do is practice a lot of questions. But there is a reason why lots of people don't like math, because when you go practice questions, you either don't know where to start and you're just completely confused, or maybe you can start by doing the question and you go check out the textbook and you go back and forth and you spend a lot of time in just one single question and eventually you still get the question wrong. That's just such a negative experience. I have personally experienced this so many times. Let me tell you, nobody likes that. This experience will only make you feel frustrated and defeated. So let me share with you my favorite ways of practicing a question that doesn't make you feel like you want to stab yourself with a fork. So when I encounter a question, I don't start writing immediately. Instead, I will take a couple moments to mentally walk through how I'm going to solve it. If I have no idea how to solve the problem, I will just give up. Yes, you heard me right. I will just give up. Instead, I will just go look at the answer of the question. I take time to thoroughly understand the answer and its approach at each step. Once I've grasped the solution, I set the answer aside and try to solve the question on my own, and I will write each step down. This time, I won't give up too easily. I will make a genuine effort to apply what I just learned from the answer, and once I complete the solution, I compare it to the answer key once again. If I realize I've done it incorrectly or I'm stuck at a point that I can't quite recall, I will just repeat the process, understand the answer, then attempt the question again independently until I get it right. So a couple reasons of why I think this way of practicing a question is really effective. It really saves time, and I think it's a really efficient way of using your time. So instead of spending a lot of time trying to figure out a question on your own, and you might not even on the right track, you might be completely in the wrong chapter. You could have used that time to practice like multiple questions. And I'm not saying that there's absolutely no value of trying really hard to figure out the question on your own. All I'm saying is that if you look at a question and you don't know how to do it, and you probably will spend a lot of time going back to the textbook and trying to figure it out on your own, you could have used that time to actually look at the correct answer and try to understand the correct way. Because the purpose of practicing a question is to learn from this practicing session. So it really doesn't matter if you get the question wrong or right the first time when you try this answer. It really matters is, are you moving on before you actually know how to answer the question? Compared to those scenarios, first is that I did a question, I got it wrong, and I got so upset, so I move on. Or the second one is that I know I probably can't do it independently, then I look at the answer and I learn every single step, and then now I do the question again, and this time I try really hard, so I know how to actually do the question. So instead of spending the majority of the time in trying to figure out the question on your own, spend the time on you can actually do this question. The key is that don't move on to the next question until you can do the question independently on your own. You are 100% checked that you know how to do the question. Don't try to just understand math by reading it. You should make sure you understand the questions by practicing it and distribute your time more efficiently. Another common concern is that, if you just look at the answer and you do the question, you're just memorizing it. You don't actually understand the question. So the way I think about it is that if I actually understand the math, then I understand the logic behind it. Example, for a question, it's given A and the answer is D. I know the logic behind each step. I know given A, it should lead to B, and I know given B, it lead to C, and given C, it lead to D. Well, if I'm just memorizing it, I probably will just memorize, given A, then D. So the Feynman technique, which is a famous technique that helps people to understand things better, is invented by Nobel Prize winner Richard Feynman. It basically means that if you want to test yourself whether you fully understand something, you explain it to someone else. Ideally, that someone doesn't have lots of background on what you're talking about. Imagine you're explaining it to a child, and if you can really explaining everything using the simplest language, then you fully understand this thing. I use this technique sometimes. I just pretend I'm teaching someone else, or it's actually even better when someone asks me a question, I would just try to explain it to them. That's a really good way to test whether you fully understand the question or not. And a thing that I always say is that you might think that you're bad at math, but you're not. I truly believe that everybody can become good at math, and everybody experiences some level of math anxiety, and that's completely normal. Even though I study some pretty high-level math in college, and I still had the same feeling as before. Sometimes if I skipped one class, I couldn't understand the next class completely. The first step of becoming good at math is to believe that you can become good at math, and whatever you're experiencing, that's completely normal. Just the nature of math, it has layers that you cannot skip. So when you feel like sometimes you don't understand math, why it doesn't make any sense, because each new concept, each new topic is built on its previous knowledge. For example, if you want to learn calculus, you have to learn pre-calculus first, which means you probably need to learn algebra, geometry, and trigonometry, and all those subjects has its own fundamental knowledge as well. And all those knowledge basically can form a giant network, and this is also why school have prerequisites for STEM subjects. So if you feel very lost in your calculus class and you're very confused why the teacher jumped from one step to another step and everyone else seems like, oh, they just understand it and you have no idea what's going on, it's probably because that's like a concept node that you're missing, and they assume you have the background, so they don't always explain it. And when you're like facing a new problem or like you're learning a new concept and you felt like you're slower than everyone else, it's not because you're stupid or anything. It's probably because you're not familiar with all the fundamental knowledge enough. It's because you're probably pausing at each step and trying to understand at each step, trying to make sense to yourself, while someone else that's really familiar with all those concepts, they can just like jump through those and then without even need to think too hard about it. Your brain is always working and it's slower in terms of like reasoning, processing, and conscious thinking. Like when you heard most of things the first time, your brain is trying to understand them. Have you experienced something like you read a book and every single word is going into your head, but after like a couple sentences and then you realize, oh shoot, I actually didn't read anything, and you have to read the sentence again because you are not processing them. You are not using your conscious brain to think them. And this part of your brain, this slow brain you're using, is when problem solving and reasoning happens. And on the other hand, we also have this fast brain that we relies on recognizing patterns and intuition thoughts or like gut feelings. You really don't need to even think about it, and your brain just automatically processed it for you really fast before you even realized it. For example, like this is a cat. Do you really need to think about, oh, what is this? I have seen this before. What is this? Oh, I remember I saw it last time somewhere, and then you're like, oh, that's a cat. No, you really don't need to do that because you have seen a cat so many times before. So now you see a cat before you even realize it, your brain already knows it. Similarly, in terms of math, if I ask you what is 1 + 1, you will know it's 2. You don't need to think hard about it. So when someone is really good at math, especially the people that are really fast with math, they had more experience in terms of all those concepts. They just practiced so many times and lots of the basic concepts like geometry or algebra. They don't even need to think hard about it. So when they're learning a new topic, their brain is automatically relies on all those fundamental topics that they know so well. So they takes way less time to process. To excel math, all we need to do is combine those aspects. So basically, by practicing and using our conscious brain so many times that it becomes second nature to our brain, that it already internalized, that we don't have to do the reasoning and processing anymore. That's when we transform our slow brain and all the efforts to fast brain and intuition. So next time when you see a problem, your brain will immediately recognize the familiar elements and put together a solution for you. So if you think this video is helpful, please hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye bye. Love you.